Okay, so for this one, what we're covering is common connectivity scenarios between corporate data centers and VPC, load balancing between the peered VPCs and on-prem data centers. So we wanted to know how the corporate data center can connect to these VPCs and how we can load balance the traffic between the VPC and then the corporate data center, right? So that's why I'm adding a corporate data center here with some data centers, and I'm connecting these VPC to the corporate data center through a VPN. So you already know what a VPN does. Excuse me. And then I'm adding like another VPC with a NAT Gateway Internet. It's like the same setup that we had in here. And then I'm adding a VPC Gateway Endpoint. It's similar to what we talked about here in connecting Genesis 3 and DynamoDB. And then let's see. Okay, so what I'm trying to say in here, so if we have a scenario where we have a VPC here, and then this VPC wanted to connect to the internet, right? So it doesn't have any other connection out to the internet other than this one. Like ignore this part that this is connected, this transit gateway is connected to this transit gateway, and this is out connected to the internet. Imagine there was no this transit gateway peering in here. And then you can see this transit gateway doesn't have access to the internet at all. Yes, it has connection to the corporate data center, but it doesn't have connection to the internet. It has a VPC peering to this one, right? So I can imagine, I can say, oh my God, okay, so I have a connection, like a VPC peering connection to this gateway, to this VPC, and this VPC actually have access to internet, right? So can I imagine that my VPC can reach to the internet? No, it's not possible. Right, so if it's a VPC peering between the two, I would say two VPCs, since VPC peering is non-transitive in nature, it cannot give us access to the internet through a NAT gateway, and then also through the internet gateway out into the internet. So that's not possible. So that's one scenario, right? Another scenario would be, can it access that through the VPC endpoint gateway to reach out to these S3 and DynamoDB? No, it cannot do that one either. So can it go through the NAT gateway into the internet? No. Can it go through a VPC endpoint gateway to access services within AWS network like S3 and DynamoDB? No, it cannot do that either. And that's meaning we're talking about like this peering. Since we have this peering, VPC peering connection, can those things happen? And we can see that they cannot happen. How about if this VPC wanted to connect to this corporate data center? Just because I'm thinking that these two VPC are connected through this peering connection, and then now I have a VPN, site-to-site VPN between this VPC-P and this corporate data center. Can I assume that my VPC can access this VPC? No, it cannot do that, because again, since this VPC peering is non-transitive in nature, that thing cannot happen either. I know this thing might be a bit confusing, but just think about this one, I would say. Think the VPC peering. So the VPC peering is the main culprit, I would say, and it's not allowing anything to go either to the internet, to AWS services, or to corporate data center, because it's not transitive in nature. If that was a transit gateway, that might have been possible. So those are common scenarios between the VPC and then the corporate data center. Now I'm talking about the load balancing, right? So I'm adding something called, like this is an application load balancer. So application load balancers have two types. One is kind of like an internet facing, and another one is internal. So internal is for any load balancing within the VPC, and then internet facing is when you wanted to connect to other VPCs here, and then wanted to connect to corporate data center, things like that. So you can see like I have a public subnet. Within that public subnet, I have internet facing ELB, and then I have an internal ELB in here, right? And then I'm adding some private subnets with some EC2 instances in there. And then you can see what I had. I had a target group 1 here, a target group 2 here, and then a target group 2 here in my corporate data center. So I have a corporate data center here, I have this VPC here, and then I have a separate VPC. So now any traffic that will be coming through this internet facing ELB or application load balancer, it can be divided to these 3 different target groups. So one This is second in corporate data center, and third one in this other VPC. So this is how the application load balancers can load balance the traffic through that. So there's like a user trying to reach out to this internet facing ELB. So now it's sending the load balancing across the peered VPC. And the reason that it can do that is because through this peering, right? So now this peering, you have an ELB or application load balancer wanted to reach out to this, I would say like in this target group is actually a set of EC2 instances. Like for this target group one, I have added some EC2 instances, but I haven't done that for this one, just for the sake of space. But usually for the application load balancers, you put some EC2 instances and kind of name them a certain target group, and then you're sending traffic to that group. It kind of divide all the traffic within those EC2 instances. So you have target group 1, group 2, and group 3. Through this one, it does it because of the VPN connection. So it's load balancing across on-prem through VPN DX, load balancing through this one through the, I would say, across a peered VPC. So what happens is, again, we know that the VPC peering connection has non-transitive in nature. So this thing cannot go outside to the internet, or I would say to some other VPC just because they're connected, but they can, since they're directly connected with each other, that's how these two can work, right? Okay, so let's see what else do we have. Okay, so we have the internal ELB, right? So for example, if you wanted to load balance the traffic between the private instance, the private subnets, then that's where you will be using internally. Again, this might be a bit more complex topic, so I won't go much details into it, but this is basically what it is. And then here I'm adding just a route table for this VPC, right? So we had another route table here, but this is a bit more like we have some different, I would say, concepts in here, right? Not concepts, but different routing. So for example, if it goes to, if the destination is a 20/16 thing, which is this VPC, it's local, everyone can talk to each other. If it's meant for the internet, then it has to go through the virtual private gateway, right? And the reason that I'm saying that is, kind of like this is my virtual private gateway, so it has to go through this one, and maybe this I would say corporate data center is being connected to the internet, and that's how it wanted to go through the internet, right? And then I have another thing that's 30.00/16, and it has to go through the transit gateway. So like this 30, let's just find out who has a 30 VPC range, CIDR range. So this VPCM has that range. So any traffic that this VPC wanted to send to VPCM, it has to go through the transit gateway and then into this one. So I just added like the transit gateway concept in here in the virtual private gateway. So for this one, we had like local internet gateway, Bastion Host. And then in this one, what we have is actually, I would say the virtual private gateway, and then the target, the transit gateway. And in this one, I think so I did miss to mention that in this one, we have a Bastion host, right? In this one, we have a NAT gateway. So if it's meant for the internet, for this one, so anything that's originating from the web server, from the database, and that's meant for the internet, it has to first go through the NAT gateway and out into the internet. But if it's kind of like coming inside to this specific web server, then it has to go through the Bastion host. Okay, so excuse me for that, just clearing my throat again. Okay, so what else do we have? Let's see. Yeah, so what happens with like this transit gateway through this AWS site VPN through a virtual private gateway can also connect, not virtual private, customer gateway can connect to the corporate data center. So we have virtual private gateway on the customer side, on the AWS side, and then the customer gateway always on the corporate data center side. What else do we have? I think so that was pretty much it. So I don't have more stuff in there. So thank you so much again. If you have any questions, please let me know, either in the comment area, or I will be leaving my contact information too. Again, I'm going to make this confession at the end of this video too. I am NAT. I would say an expert or a teacher on AWS. I'm just a student learning it myself and trying to share my learning ways with other students. If I'm making any mistakes, please let me know. Any feedbacks or suggestions are more than welcome. I will let you guys have a beautiful day, if it's day or if it's evening or night, and enjoy your time. So that's it. It's almost 7:15. Oh my God, I think I will be getting late. I have my sister with my little cute niece who have come over. And I don't want it to be wasting time. I want to spend some time with them. So I have to run. And then again, wish you guys all the best.